And we're live. Hello. Welcome to Overdose and Chill Live. I'm Elliot, MD of Overdose Brisbane. With me today on actually my maiden voyage for OD and Chill Live is Adobe Head of Customer Strategy, Mr. Kevin Wordon. Kevin,
hey guys. Hello. Good to be here. Good, thank you. Thanks for the invite, Elliot. Pleasure to be here on your maiden session. No, I won't make it too hard for you.
Yeah, look, we've started doing these as a bit of a, I guess, an informal break from the webinars and the events, the virtual events, especially that are happening now, and a bit more casual yarn with industry folks like yourself. Yeah, so it's a good opportunity just to sort of have a yarn, and if you've got a beer, have a beer. I don't actually have a beer on me.
I've got a water, so that'll do me for now.
All right, that's cool too. So I guess we'll kick off with a bit of a sort of personal touch. I guess it'd be good to know a bit about not the professional Kevin Wordon, but the private Kevin Wordon. Tell us a bit about yourself. What you life.
Yeah. Sure. Hello to everyone watching. So I'm Kevin Wordon. I'm actually based in Brisbane. So I've been here. I was on the Gold Coast for a bit. Actually, was born in South Africa of all places, and immigrated here when I was 16, which is great. And I've spent my life on the Gold Coast, I guess, and Brisbane as well. In terms of my personal life, love animals. What's that?
You don't have to go too personal.
No. Love animals. I live out on acreage out at Greenbank. If anyone who's listening knows where that is. And I have a bit of a hobby. I also do rural firefighting as well as one of my hobbies on the side. So that's keeps me quite occupied between doing work and family life and doing that on the side.
I guess you get a bit nervous around this time of the year with the rural fire service.
Yeah, not too bad at the moment. We're officially out of the fire season, but grass is growing, and that's always nice to see green grass. But eventually browns, and then it becomes a grass fire season. So we'll see what happens in the future. But it's
cool.
That's a bit for me.
Excellent. So what I'm interested in understanding a bit more about is your role at Adobe. I believe you work across both Marketo and Magento.
Yep.
Tell us a bit about what your sort of role as head of customer strategy entails, where you sit in the sort of engagement process with clients. Is it more through the sales process? Is it sort of later on in their journeys?
Yep. Sure. So I, as the head of customer strategy, so I sit across APAC, the APAC region. My role is really to help customers with translating their strategy, their pain points, their objectives into, the marketing automation landscape, the commerce landscape, but also around just their digital foundations as an organization as well. So really helping them on that digital transformational journey. I am a bit of pre-sales, helping with prospective customers or future customers and our current customers as well, right? Because the journey doesn't stop once you purchase technology. It's ongoing, and as you start to expand your tech stack and look at new use cases and that as well. So I certainly work with existing there as well. And not sure if many people know, but we're kind of structured in how we structured our business. We focus on commerce, so the commerce solutions we provide. There's also the customer journey management solutions, we provide, and then there's also digital foundations there as well. So anything from marketing automation and commerce engines through to content management systems, asset management, personalization, analytics. So quite the wide gamut for our customers.
That's quite interesting. And while we have a pause there, I'll remind viewers that if you have any questions for either myself or Kevin, feel free to pop them in the comments, and we'll get to them. I guess, in that strategy piece that you're in, that's quite interesting because for such a broad set of functionality that a platform like Marketo or even Magento can provide, a lot of that is discussed early on in the stages and the acquisition when you're reviewing vendor platforms and so on. But I guess what can happen is a lot of those features can be forgotten, or you fall into habits, or you only use a subset of what's going on. Do you sort of get involved with customers a bit later as well and go, look, you could be utilizing this part of the platform a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, I mean, that customer success side of our business is incredibly important. So we've got behind the scenes, not many people know, we've got monitoring on your platform usage as a customer. So what are you using or not using? We actually score you behind the scenes as well. And when we're having those reviews with our customers, we're actually highlighting, hey, you might only be using 70% of what you purchased as well. And then it might be a people or process issue within the organization that might be getting in the way of adopting the technology. It could be a strategy or a roadmap discussion we might need to have. So we typically realize it's maybe more of the business and how the business operates that might get in the way of adoption. And this is where we come in and not just help them, enable them on the features of the system, but also how they can change their business to rally around the solution that they might have purchased as well.
Right. And that's, I guess, one of the strengths of, both of Adobe, but also Marketo itself. Magento, obviously, predominantly a commerce platform. Marketo has a wide variety of industries and verticals that have worked across NFP and automotive, industrial, so on and so forth. Are you bringing a lot of those strategies that you see in other markets to exposing them to customers who might be sort of stuck in their ways in a particular vertical?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no better way than to maybe look at your peers within, your industry. So we do benchmarking with that scoring I spoke about. We're actually benchmarking you against like organizations within your industry. But also we're looking outside into other industries as well, right? We know that, the likes of manufacturing, for example, are catching up on the digital transformation and they could, learn from maybe automotive, for example, know where that other customers might engage. So we do share learnings and what, when I first started out, I guess we were certainly talking about, customer success stories that were really honed in on that individual industry and a really like-for-like business. But that doesn't matter anymore. I think we can learn from other customers and what they're doing and how they're engaging. And it's becoming, like that digital experience is becoming stock standard, right?
Yeah,
expected.
I've had several conversations just this week around, B2b and B2c retail. For a lot of businesses, they're still seen as separate marketing channels, separate engagements with your customer. What are you seeing in terms of where they're converging, where they should or shouldn't be converging? What's Adobe or Marketo's and Magento's view on sort of those marketing channels as separate or similar entities?
It's interesting. So we're seeing a huge convergence, obviously, in the Magento space, right, with commerce. So, typically, how do I use the same way that I'm engaging with my customers in a B2C sense to sell to in a B2B manner? Maybe those average order values will be a bit higher, and maybe there's extra functionality we might need around invoicing, procurement, things like that. But really, we're seeing that the customer experience point of view and what you're expecting from a B2C kind of commerce experience is now expected in the B2B commerce experience as well. And in fact, like there's been a bit of a hurdle that people needed to kind of get over to understand that you actually can purchase, up to, millions of dollars worth of, equipment, for example, via a website. There's no reason why you can't. So I do see the convergence there, certainly around the digital experience. And it's funny, you mentioned the convergence of B2C and B2B. In one of my previous roles, I was working at Flight Centre in the business travel side of the organization, so very much B2B. And I developed a website, and I had one of the execs in the business say, that looks too much like the retail website. And I thought, that's a really interesting comment. For me, I didn't take that as a bad thing. I thought, for me, that's a job done. How could why does B2B have to be boring? Like, why does that experience have to be boring? If I can make it look and feel like a fun and interactive website, then I think my job is done. Let's blur those lines. And certainly with
marketing to people, right? There's still just people on the other end making purchasing decisions.
Absolutely. And it's the same with kind of market automation and how we engage with our customers and the customer engagement as well. It's still got to be relevant. It's still got to be timely, and there's that personal, I guess with B2C, there's that personal motivation. And in B2B, you've got to get the personal motivation plus the business motivation, right? So how is it going to help you in your organization by investing in this technology, but how's it going to help you as an individual within that organization? And maybe that's where I think people forget. If you can nail it on the business level and the personal level down to that individual, that's where I really think you can win in how you engage in a B2B sense.
It's a good point because, with a lot of business-to-business purchases and that whole sales process, it's very account-based. You have a sales rep who has a set list of potential customers They're going out and they're calling them, they're talking to them, visiting them. Whereas with retail, you're obviously doing things at scale, and you try to personalize that as much as you can.
Yep.
You know, these days, obviously, there's lots of newer technologies that help you do that. Can you scale that sort of one-to-one personalized communications that you have as a business retailer or wholesaler?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's how do you scale as well? How do you listen to certain behavior of an individual, and then that next best action that you might have off the back of that? So send them down the. We talk about customer journey management, right? It's really creating a journey, for the individual. Yes, you might create it a little bit en masse, but it's still that individual is going to go through that journey at the time that's relevant to them. They might then start to change based on how they're browsing, for example, on your website. Like a really good example of that. We have TAFE Queensland. I'm sure those ones, everyone knows who TAFE Queensland are. They've got 50 campuses around on the eastern seaboard of Queensland, of course. And when you can go and study at TAFE Queensland, you can choose a variety of different courses. And in fact, you can be at a certain life stage. You might be a mum or dad returning back to work. You might be, looking for postgraduate. You could be in school, or you could have just graduated school. So what they do is they really tailor the journey based on the individual and, where they've come from, then what content they're looking at, and then how they kind of adapt to maybe they at the certain life stage, or they're now interested in a different course. They've gone all of a sudden from nursing to, an auto apprenticeship. What's going on here? How do we, tailor the content moving forward? So I think that becomes incredibly important. Yeah.
One of my previous roles many years ago was working at a software vendor in the charity space, working with not-for-profits, and that is quite a complex environment to work in, because you do have so many different journeys and potential journeys for customers. Every time you're doing a new activation or a new event, you've got a different journey that you have to design for that customer. You've got your donors, you've got fundraisers, you've got people supporting fundraisers. They might be doing a run or a surf or something like that. And all of these different personas need different styles of engagement moving forward. That can be quite a complex thing, especially when you consider many charities are smaller. They don't have huge marketing teams that can put together all of this stuff. How do you sort of approach those and go, look, what's the most efficient way to map these out and build an engagement sort of strategy for them?
Well, yeah, I see businesses getting stuck in like creating all this, doing all this persona work, and then getting down to the nth degree of what the persona does and the channels they're on, and that's great. But then how do you actually, operationalize that? I think mostly it's just looking at what are maybe my top 3 personas that we go after. Let's start building programs around them. Let's just start somewhere. Like, don't wait for every single persona in your business to be, drafted and then, create programs on the back of it. Just start somewhere. And maybe at the very least, you may be starting with like an influencer and a buyer persona, let's say in B2b, right? Maybe just those 2, right? Or a decision maker and an influencer, as an example. Just start there and then build content for that. And then maybe you can get down into, okay, it's a decision maker who is a CIO, it's a decision maker who's a CDO or a CMO or the CEO. It's an influencer who maybe is more in the operational space of the organization or sales team or something like that. So I think just start really broadly and work your way down. And you should start seeing immediately. Like when I've been in previous businesses where our sales team has been 100% focused on the decision maker. And then when building out nurturing and programs, we found that actually it's the influencer within the organization that we get a 3 times higher success rate with. So the sales team then kind of takes a bit of notice and goes, well, moving forward, we should start to talk to the influencer rather than the decision maker. So, I think bringing what you're learning back into the sales process and how you're going after customers is important as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned some of your previous experience there at Flight Centre. I'd like to know what sort of journey you took to end up as head of customer strategy at Adobe, changing pace a little bit and going back to more about the man, Kevin. How did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, it's a bit of a journey in my career. So I had a Bachelor of Communications, majoring in marketing and public relations, and around that time, kind of this digital transformation hadn't really started. It was still, your traditional marketing, and that's what we learned certainly back in my day at university. But then I actually joined. I worked for Dreamworld and Whitewater World whilst I was studying, so I had about 4 years of good, experience there, just deciding where I wanted to end up. I was kind of going into learning and development a little bit, but then decided to kind of fully pursue marketing. And I actually joined Westfield, which is a very, bricks and mortar, traditional organization, traditional way of marketing. And around that time, we actually started on the digital transformation journey with, direct marketing and digital marketing being two kind of focuses. So we called it back then, two key pillars of the organization. And yeah, I put my hand up to volunteer to learn and to take on that for the Queensland centres. And that's where I really kind of started to flourish in digital, just by having a bit of an interest in it. And worked for a variety of different organisations, from QSR, kind of food and beverage, through to retail with the Luxor City Beach. Then ended up at Flight Centre, really in the more of a B2b space, running their digital business, growing the team out there. I started with myself as the one digital team member, grew to a team of 15, just looking after the B2B digital experience. And then, I worked for Retail Food Group as the chief digital officer, so building out a team there and focusing on B2B and B2c in that organisation. So the B2B side is their food distribution, coffee, and then the kind of more the retail B2C side that you see, with Crust, Pizza Capers, Donut King, Brumbies, and the likes as well. So, I think, if anyone's early on in the journey listening to this, it's probably just sticking your hand up and not being afraid to learn and go in different directions. And really, you are the master of your own career, right? So, the more you're learning, the more you're diversifying, then the great opportunities in the future.
Absolutely, especially in a space that we're both in that is evolving so rapidly every day. You can't afford not to be sort of learning and picking up what's out there. And I think you and I are probably a similar vintage. We were going through those sort of early stages of our career at roughly the same time, when I guess there was a bit of a, they weren't as sophisticated as platforms as are available now. So we were, back in the day, pushing for, engagement with certain technologies. We were working with the internal business to build a business case in deploying a particular technology. We might have been talking about customer data platforms or loyalty or something like that. And I was having this conversation with an industry veteran last week sometime, and we were talking about those challenges, pushing those things internally in those early days. Yeah. But that sort of got me thinking, and I wanted to ask you, what do you see that people are championing inside businesses that will be kind of universal technologies tomorrow, next year, the next 2 years? We'll see it everywhere, but right now it's sort of a challenge pushing those things through. It might be a platform like Marketo or something like that. It might be a sort of general technology. What do you think will be those universal things that we're not really seeing in the market right now, or in the early stages of it?
Look, I think there's a majority of businesses still need to catch up on the digital experience and the customer journey orchestration. So I think absolutely. So still need to get there, but certainly what we're investing in a lot of, and I know these are buzzwords at the moment, but artificial intelligence, machine learning. And so it's really, you're not necessarily having to know the ins and outs of that unless you're kind of developing your own software, your own technology, but just understanding that when you're looking for a vendor, how much are they investing in that space to make the lives of a marketer, for example, a lot more efficient, and maybe the customer experience a little bit more delightful for the customer as well. So, a really good example of that might be if I'm running an event like this, and I'm going out to a database of my prospective customers. Is there intelligence behind the scene that might say, okay, my date of my event is in 2 weeks' time. I've only got maybe 60% of the people I need to invite in order to get enough people to attend my webinar. Can the system then start to look at other people within the database and recommend a list for you to send an invite to? That's the stuff that we've built, within our technology as well. We're really fortunate, right? Marketo was acquired by Adobe, and Adobe has been focusing on this for a long time through the Creative Cloud and the Experience Cloud business, right? So think of all the amazing tools that you might get in Photoshop, right? That help with that, you be more creative. Our strategy moving forward is to help, marketers market to, not have to, get down into the technical details of the system or maybe, navigate through that database and find people yourself to send that invite to. The system's recommending things for you as well. So I think that's That's probably the key, other than other businesses kind of catching up and getting there.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess, you know, one of the challenges people do have in presenting those business cases is being able to project what the value would be of those things. Potentially they're not able to measure what they're achieving right now. And being able to extrapolate on nothing is kind of difficult. So putting together these business cases to present to a business is kind of difficult, and it's a challenge I think we all see on this side of the on this side of the fence, outside of the retail world, is being able to assist a business in putting that business case forward internally. Yeah,
absolutely, and I guess that's probably how my role actually came about. So I was a customer of Adobe's for around 7 years, and I joined the Marketo business prior to the Adobe acquisition, and my role was, you know, as a strategic advisor to come in and help businesses kind of craft that business case. I think, excuse me, where the biggest difficulty is that translation of what the business's objectives are and my leadership actually cares about, you know, those top priorities, into how does the solution actually meet those priorities and those objectives as well. That's the disconnect that I see more often than not. I want to just go and invest in marketing automation. Why? Like, what's it going to help you with? Is it going to help you be more efficient? Actually, is it going to help, yes, with the acquisition, but have you thought about the customer retention side of your business? So we're typically now talking about not just marketing automation, we're talking about like operational automation. You know, we've got some customers like, you know, Uber Eats, for example, who are using our technology to onboard, you know, new businesses through the pandemic and new drivers and things like that. You know, and just being able to scale the technology in a really quick manner to help them. So I'm sure when they started it with the journey of Marketo, they didn't think of how much impact it could have on that operational side of the business, right? So, and also I'd say aligning to whatever existing projects you have within the organization, or, you know, the number one values or, you know, priorities for your executives. So I hear about, you know, customer experience, customer centricity. How do you align to those kind of objectives within the organization? You know, I think that's incredibly important, and just not necessarily dumbing it down, but still letting your leadership know the value of the platform and what it can do, rather than just saying, hey, we want to purchase Magento, we want to purchase Marketo. Let them understand what it does. I think is you know, educate them is really important.
Fair enough. You touched on an interesting point just before as well, which I think would be fun to sort of delve into a little bit. So you mentioned you were at Marketo prior to the Adobe acquisition. Is that right?
Yep.
How did that affect the business of Marketo from an integration perspective? How did those two worlds collide and become, you know, a cohesive unit? Was that a struggle? Was it a bit of a fear factor with this big business coming in and having to report to a mothership? How did that sort of go down culturally?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't think, because this was only maybe 4 months after I joined Marketo that we were acquired. I think of all the organizations that were sniffing around and looking at Marketo, I think we landed in a really awesome space. One thing about Adobe is that they do acquisitions really well, and it was such a seamless transition into the organization. You know, and it really couldn't, actually, we're all pretty surprised. You know, we're thinking about, you know, Marketo is a fairly big business, Adobe is a big business, so how would that actually work? And certainly we felt like, you know, there's open arms. And then we really like how, you know, the origins around the creative side of their business, that really resonates with marketers as well. Right now, you're part of Adobe, you've probably been using Adobe, and you probably have Adobe within your organization. Most do. So that, you know, it was great that to be acquired by such a company that focuses on the creative all the way through to kind of the digital experience, through to like document productivity, and kind of all in one there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's providing you with a lot of value as well, given that Marketo doesn't just play in, you know, it's not just email marketing, for example. You're doing a lot of content work, you're doing on-site stuff, and the merging of, you know, creative tools into platforms like Magento, as well as Marketo, and building that sort of unified ease of use marketing platform for an individual doing their day job is the kind of value you sort of want to see in those kind of platforms. So, and, you know, the risk of beating a dead horse that is sort of talking about 2020 and working from home. I know you've been working from home for quite a while, long before the pandemic, weren't you?
Yes, correct.
Was that sort of helped with, you know, Adobe's sort of vision of remote workforces, or was that you just putting your hand up and going, I'm moving to Greenbank, I'm just going to work here, deal with it? How did that go down?
Yeah, I mean, like I was, there's quite a few remote employees anyway, globally. So I think, the way that they had systems processes in place anyway. And so to enable them to kind of scale very, very quickly to now having almost, the entire workforce working from home. I'm based out of Queensland. Obviously, there's no office here, but we have, offices in Sydney and Melbourne. So I was doing a lot of traveling, I guess, prior to 0 flights. I went from 78 flights in 2019 to 0 flights in 2020. So thinking of the carbon footprint, that probably helped a lot. So yeah, I think for our organization, we will be, more flexible than ever before. Remote, will become a part of everyone's lives. There'll be opportunity to work in the office as well. But yeah, it's been pretty seamless for me because I've done it before. But the major change is just less traveling, which for having a young family, I've got a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. It's actually really, it's good. It's nice.
Cool. Do you find yourself the go-to guy in the business for those looking for advice, how to set up, how to deal with working from home, how to put up with not having people to bounce ideas off next to you and tell jokes to, show memes to on Instagram?
Yeah, look, a little bit, probably more in the earlier days, but Adobe's been really supportive. Like we have virtual yoga, we've got and just even through the pandemic, we realized that there's other countries who've been harder hit more than us, and obviously our colleagues around the world, even to Adobe giving days off just to focus on yourself. Right, I think that's really important. And so we've had these Adobe, company-wide days off that have been provided to us, which have been absolutely beneficial. Just to, I think when you're in the office, you can get out and about. You go get a coffee, go get some lunch. You get up on your feet. I think that's the biggest thing, that you just need to get outside. Like I've got animals here, so I kind of go down and feed them, and I'll go and get some eggs from the chickens and that as well. So yeah, and that for me, that's a nice break in your day. I think you need to schedule that. Otherwise, you can just be back to back in conference calls all day long. Yeah,
I think a lot of people would like to take a break from their day and go out the back and pick some eggs from your chickens or alpacas. Tell us a bit about the little slice of paradise that you live on. I know you had some photos prepared. Unfortunately, we can't sort of share screens at the moment, so we'll have to use our imaginations. But tell us a little bit about the sort of plot of land you're living on. What you do out there? Yeah,
sure. So just like it's 1 acre out here at Greenbank, and I've got 3 alpacas and 13 chickens and 2 dogs. Soon to be 3 dogs. So yeah, it's people go, why alpacas?
Keep growing the population out there.
Yeah, I see these other animals up for adoption. I often say to my wife, should we get a goat? No, she's like, no. Can we get a cow? No. So yeah, no, it's really nice. Just I do love animals, and a lot of people say, why alpacas? I just think they're interesting. They're a really interesting animal, and nice to be around as well.
Yeah, they're super interesting animal. I love them. And in fact, my partner and I were up the Sunshine Coast hinterland, just going for a drive over the weekend, and just happened to pass a plot of land with a bunch of alpacas, and we spotted this baby alpaca running downhill and just face planting into the ground, and it was just like a cloud with too many appendages attached to it rolling around. And honestly, we had to pull over. We couldn't stop laughing for half an hour, and I feel kind of bad about that. But they're just beautiful.
They're pretty funny animals, and amazing guardians as well. The other day I was looking down the bottom, and they were protecting my chickens from a massive water monitor and shooting it out the property. So I mean, yeah, really good.
So a water monitor, do you get sort of, are you in, do you have a plot of land near sort of a lot of industry or that sort of stuff, or is it in an area where it's all sort of open space, so you do get a lot of wildlife through there?
Yeah, I mean, where I'm looking at that side at the moment, it's all just mountains and bush, and then I'm backing onto bush as well. So get quite a few. Dingoes have been spotted off the back of a property before as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they can be quite protective then, the alpacas.
Yeah,
I've heard about them that they are quite protective of their friends and family.
They are. No, they're awesome.
Good guide dogs.
Yep.
That's cool. That's cool. So, aside from, I guess, contractual obligations with work, what what gets you out of bed in the morning? What sort of drives you? What sort of keeps you going day to day? What are the things that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously animals, but just my family as well, and creating a really good childhood for my family, or for my kids. That's certainly the memories that you create for your children are really important. Is that want to create those when they're older, they're looking back on that. So that's a bit of a decision why to get some animals and get a playground put in the back, and so a bit of landscaping, because if you ever do buy acreage, you realize you build a house and then you go, oh, now I've got to landscape the thing. We're going to get the time to do that. So a lot of just plodding away at that and landscaping, and then just giving back as much as I can. I realize that I'm in a really fortunate situation, particularly through this last year or so, and being in a full-time job. And so the way that I like to give back is when in my spare time, how can I give back? Volunteer, and that's another thing that keeps me going as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we can take it for granted the position we're in. Obviously, being in a e-commerce sort of world, which has exploded in the last 12 months, and it was already on the rise. It's fantastic for businesses involved, but there's a lot of people being left behind, and we can occasionally stop and think about those people, think about what we can give back. So it's fantastic that you're looking at things that way. Yeah. I guess we're looking at about 30 minutes mark here, and we've covered quite a lot of ground actually. We've powered through a lot of content. What I'm keen to know is, with the challenges that we're seeing at the moment, especially with human contact, what's Adobe broadly and Marketo, Magento looking at in this coming year around events, things that you're sort of doing to engage the community, virtual or otherwise? And I'm assuming most of it will be virtual. Yes. What's coming up? What can you plug about Adobe at the moment?
Yeah, so we're planning now for our Adobe Summit, which will happen in a few months' time. Typically, that is a in-person event, but that'll obviously be all virtual. So we're trying to replicate that as much as we can. We're going to have some great customer speakers. They're talking about kind of their journey around digital transformation, commerce, the digital foundations within the organization, and obviously customer journey management. So that's really exciting. We also have a whole bunch of we changed the way that we typically just do webinars, and just like you guys are doing a different way of engaging. We have a few kind of virtual wine tasting events that if you're interested, so we've actually got one coming up, if we can share, you can find me on LinkedIn if you're interested in attending. If you want to find out more about kind of some of the trends that we've seen around 2020 and into 2021, we'll be discussing that in a wine tasting forum, which is great, and we're going to have some customers coming along to that too. So we typically changing the way that we're not just doing webinars, we're actually making it quite interactive, and realizing that our customers don't get to mingle, and our future customers don't get to mingle as well. So how do we bring people all together and give them the chance to connect? And that's going to be quite a focus for us moving forward. Yeah.
We've got a question coming in from Jody. What's new on the horizon in digital marketing that we should know about? So you might be able to dish on some new features if possible, or just what you're seeing generally. It would be really cool to get your insights there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's mostly around probably more than ever the rise of your first-party data. That's probably what I'm seeing, as we're looking at, being a little bit more cookieless in the future, right, than relying on the third-party data. So I think from a digital marketing perspective, it's really now more than ever, the data that you have available to yourself and how you can start to engage with your customers. That's becoming more important than ever before, like not relying on, maybe not so accurate third-party data we've been getting in the past, and hoping, spraying and praying that we're reaching the right customers. So I think that's really important. What is quite exciting is that we're around that kind of cookieless, going cookieless. We're certainly developing more ability for our customers to kind of connect profiles of their customers together, through a very safe and governed manner. But it's probably more looking at then your second party data as well. How can we connect our customers together who might have like customers, and share those attributes maybe potentially across through an Adobe ID and things like that. That's what's coming, as well as we trying to kind of navigate and through that change. And then we've got some exciting stuff coming around more, the creative into the marketing automation space. So, how do we make that seamless there too? And then, some exciting stuff as well. We've Adobe made an acquisition of Workfront quite recently, and so looking at how do we, integrate more, quite seamlessly into that platform, around making the organization around a marketer's life more seamless, and then integrating that maybe into their creative, maybe into their market automation there as well. So that's that's quite exciting. So
yeah, it's interesting that the cookieless world that you mentioned, it's something we're aware of at Overdose, and sort of making moves to help retailers through that. I guess it's going to be quite a hump to get over, and I think it's good that platforms are thinking about, well, they have to think about how we deal with that convergence of data privacy laws like your GDPRs and so on, but also privacy on specific devices as well. It's going to be quite a shift in how, especially retailers who rely on so much sort of cohort data to understand how to market appropriately to their customers. There's going to be quite a few technical challenges, especially for smaller businesses who rely on third-party sort of SaaS platforms to deliver knowledge to them. It's going to be a upheaval.
It is.
That might be a word, but it's going to be a challenge for a lot of businesses.
It is, and I think, as I said before, it just makes your first-party data even more important. And maybe that's the delay that you've had of integrating that certain system, and trying to create that single customer view. That probably becomes more important now, right? So how can I bring my physical touchpoint data and my CRM, ERP data, bring that together, with my single customer profile, and then use all those kind of what I'm hearing from these different touch points to then do that next best action, rather than relying on a third party. I think that's the change that we're seeing. Not to say it's all doom and gloom, but it's designed for more of the privacy and protection of general consumers. So I think it's a good thing. But certainly we've got to adapt. It's
absolutely a good thing, and I think the message from that is for businesses to reach out and talk to their service providers and say, look, how are we resolving this? I know, I'm not going to be able to see when people are looking at my site on Safari or my iPhone, or, when they've clicked a link somewhere. So you need to start having those conversations so you're ahead of the game. And, as we know, a lot of, and we talked about earlier in this conversation, a lot of businesses are catching up with what's current. But I think this is definitely something that you need to get ahead of rather than wait until it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to your point earlier, just reaching out to, think of your technology partners as business partners, right? Reach out to them. They've got, they've thought about this, and we've been thinking about this for a very long time. So whether it's your, partner like Overdose or Adobe, if you're a customer, if you're not, that's fine as well. Just talk and reach out, and we can help you navigate it.
Fantastic. Okay, I think that is a pretty good overdose and chill. I feel like we covered quite a lot of ground in the 40 or so.
Chickens to digital to alpacas to
chickens.
And we put it all together, right?
And if you do want to follow Kevin's alpacas, you can hit them up on Instagram under Tripackers, TRIPACAS. They are amazing, and you can waste a whole day just browsing through an Instagram profile of alpacas. I speak from experience. Thanks very much for your time this morning and this afternoon for us in Brisbane. It's been wonderful chatting to you. It's good to chat to anybody as we sort of still remain somewhat isolated from each other.
Yep.
Any sort of parting words or remarks or plugs that you'd like to make?
No, look, it's fantastic to have had a chat to you guys and all those who are viewing. I'm a really kind of an open book, and so if you just hit me up on LinkedIn if you have any questions at all. As I said, it doesn't matter if you're a customer or not even looking at being a customer. I'm looking to connect with as many people as possible and continue to do so. So yeah, hit me up.
He's a wonderful guy. Feel free to reach out and say hello. Kevin, if we're ever in the same place and Adobe lets you out to talk to people, we'll grab a drink sometime.
Excellent. That's good.
And we should leave it there. So thanks everybody for watching. This will stay online so you can review later if you feel the need. And thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy your weekend. See ya.